All right. Hello, everybody. So, as you can see, I put my hair extensions back in. I didn't think I could, but I did it myself. So now I don't have to spend, $3,000 to get them put back in. Anyways, hi, Ryan. Hi, Jack. Hi, everybody watching on Getter. All right. So, today, we're going to have a special guest on. We're going to have Joeylynn Mesaros come on and talk about her experience with the Biden administration and the viral Trump train that blew up. I remember when that happened, and I literally wish I could have been there. Hi.
Hey.
How are you doing?
Awesome. I'm so excited. Thank you so much for having me. I'm living for your butterfly clips.
Thank you. I love your earrings. I meant to say that earlier.
Thank you.
I
Just
love
for
butterflies
you.
in general.
Same.
That's like totally my thing now. Even my butterfly tattoo that I have right here.
Yes. Well, I actually grew up when they were like actually a thing in the 90s. You probably weren't even born yet. But I'm enjoying reliving it.
I love when they bring trends back. Like I was all over the scrunchie thing, even though those were super popular back in the 90s. I'm glad they came back, and they're totally a fad that are going to repetitively come back. I love it.
Yes. They're so practical.
Yeah. I mean, they just go with everything, honestly. It's not like what was that? We had the mustache trend that was back in like the early 2000s, and then like those other trends, they don't come back the way butterflies do.
They don't. Timeless. I know. Really. I'm also glad platforms are back. That I'm short, so like thank God. Get a little boost.
Absolutely. All right, so I'm gonna let you introduce yourself and then talk about what you guys do for a little bit, because I was looking through the website and I watched the video, and I'm still blown away with that whole thing that had happened. But I'm gonna give you the floor. I'm gonna let you talk about it a little bit.
Awesome. Thank you. So for anybody watching that doesn't know me, I'm Joeylynn. I'm a stay-at-home mom. I live in New Braunfels, Texas, which is between San Antonio and Austin. I homeschool my son, which is fairly new for the past year and a half. I kind of woke up to politics and indoctrination in the public school system and what's in our food. And we've just been making tons of changes the last year and a half, and things are completely different now than they were just a couple of years ago. But homeschooling has been one of those big changes. My son is 11. His name is Jude. I'm married to my high school sweetheart. We've been married for almost 16 years. And my husband's name is Robert. He has a precious handlebar mustache. He's sick tonight. He was supposed to be here with me. I am holding down the fort. He's a plumber. We're a single income family. We were just trying to live the American dream, mind our own business, just have a little bit of fun, kind of get involved in politics and show our support for President Trump. And it has changed our life. Thanks to the lunatic left, the progressive left, and how they're just so easily offended by everything. We are getting sued in federal court under the Ku Klux Klan law of 1871, essentially for exercising free speech, which would be shocking, I think, to anybody. But after what we saw recently with Mar-a-Lago getting raided, I don't think it should surprise anybody that this administration is weaponizing the judicial system against its opponents or supporters. So we are living proof of that and working to fight back to hold the line for free speech. And I'd love to get more in depth about what's going on with that story.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, number one, love homeschooling. I know that, I'm only 23, so I don't have any kids yet, but I know that I already plan on homeschooling them just because I've seen the types of stuff that they are putting in the schools. And that's the number one thing that I get the most passionate about when it comes to this type of stuff. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. And I can't even imagine like them coming after you and trying to sue you for free speech. That stuff frustrates me. And I can't even imagine how much it frustrates y'all.
Yeah, I know. I think it would really like grind my gears if I just saw that happening to somebody, or it would really, really upset me if it was somebody that I loved. It would concern me just as a citizen, but experiencing it personally has given me a whole new appreciation for defending our constitutional rights and our God-given rights that nobody should be able to take away from us or punish us for exercising. Our founding fathers are rolling in their graves. So, I'm like, they think that they picked on us. I know they thought that we'd roll over and take it and grovel and beg and apologize and just try to salvage what little we have. But I'm willing to lose it all to defend my rights. And so they picked the wrong homeschool mom because I just care more than ever. And so we are hoping to have a victory for First Amendment rights that essentially puts the left in their place when they try to mess with Americans and, try to infringe on our rights this way. I think they want to make an example out of us, but we hope that we can have a victory for 1A rights and hold the line for our free speech and First Amendment rights.
Absolutely. Heck yeah. And there needs to be more people fighting back, especially on the free speech thing, because that's something that they've been targeting for a really, really long time now.
Yeah.
And they keep pushing it further and further and thinking that they can get away with more and more.
Yeah.
And so seeing this, I definitely want y'all to win so that it can be like a slap in the face to them. So they're like, we can't get away with stuff like this.
Honestly, you're right. Free speech has been like, they've been taking little bites of that apple with social media or, what you can and can't say at work or, and we've all been compliant. Like, okay, well, we still want to be able to use social media. So what can you do? But this is a whole another level. This would set a national precedent for essentially anybody to be sued by our leaders, our lawmakers, people in government, or just anybody that's offended. And with the culture that we're living in today, when is that not going to happen? So it is very important that they not set the precedent here, that we do.
Right. Exactly. And so, okay, so you said that they're suing you on the KKK law. What is that?
I hate that I even have to know this. So I also had no idea. When we found out we were getting sued, which might I add was through CNN, because the people suing us had a national press release with mainstream media. And so on a summer day by the pool in 2021, I was all over worldwide news and had to find out that way. And it wasn't until 4 weeks later we actually got served and I could understand what we were getting sued for, and learned it was under the Ku Klux Klan law, and started doing some research and trying to learn as much as I could as quickly as possible. And I learned that the Ku Klux Klan law was put into place in the 1800s by the Republicans, who were trying to protect people of color that were trying to be emancipated from slavery and work and vote and go to school. But the Ku Klux Klan, which was associated with the Democrat Party, would literally kill people, hang people, drag people for trying to work, go to school, and vote. And so the Republicans formed, I believe, the Department of Justice and established this as a federal level consequential civil rights matter, that everybody would, anybody who was in the Ku Klux Klan and persecuting people would be held to this law. And so for the Biden administration, being the party of the Democrats and the Ku Klux Klan, to be suing the Republicans for flying Trump flags, claiming that we banded together on a public highway to suppress Black and minority voters from voting, or their rights, their voter rights, as if we were the Ku Klux Klan on horseback, but with our vehicles, is so far-fetched and so completely ridiculous. It's the typical narcissistic gaslighting we see from this administration, and it's full of lies, and it's full of holes. They can't even back this up. They haven't even met the basic requirements of using this law, which, might I add, was put into place to protect average Americans from people in positions of power within the government, lawmaking, police, military, and so on and so forth. And so they're the very ones suing average Americans under it. Who's actually suppressing voter rights?
The entire Democratic Party. That's insane, because I was watching your video earlier, and essentially they're doing it based on emotional whatever. I mean, they like to go after emotions. Yeah, like literally they got their feelings hurt, and so they think they can just file a lawsuit for no reason.
Yeah.
So I want to ask, this was about a year. When exactly was this? I was going to say a year or two ago, but I feel like it was longer.
Yeah, so it was during early election 2020. So it was October 30th, 2020, and early election had just kicked off, and we were super pumped for Trump to win. And when we heard that the Biden bus was coming through, at that time we were part of a Trump train that had 4,000 members, and it was 4 or 5 times a week we would drive through our town with the Trump train and just parade and tailgate and have fun. So when we heard the bus was coming through, we already all had our flags on our vehicles. If anybody was free, they just met up. We waited on the side of the road in a line, in a single file line, and exited our vehicles. And we're waving at people driving by because we didn't know when the bus was going to come through. We just hoped we'd see it and thought if it did come through, we'd fly our flags behind it, and it would make
Right.
maybe viral news, which it did. And so, for them to claim, they used the word in the lawsuit repeatedly, ambush, that we ambushed them. In
Oh
order
my
to ambush
gosh.
somebody, you have to be in a hidden location. It's a surprise attack. It's unforeseen, and it's mischaracterized. We were
Right.
visible, waiting on the side of the road, outside of our vehicle, smiling, waving. But this is what they do. They just fabricate these stories, And so we drove alongside the bus. It definitely did pick up viral news. Trump tweeted about it and said, "I love Texas." Don Jr. retweeted it. Then, it blew up. Whoopi Goldberg and the cast on The View are saying, like, oh, these are emboldened racist bigots crawling out from under their rocks. First, they're going to fly Trump flags. Later, they're going to burn crosses in your front yard. You cannot let Trump win. This is why you have to vote for Biden. They really capitalized on this for that election period, which started to make it feel like it was almost staged. Like they drove this bus through hoping that a Trump train would come out and they'd be able to fabricate this story around it. It really just seems completely fabricated from start to finish.
Yeah, that seems like a trend nowadays.
Mhm.
Them doing certain things in order to get a reaction out of people, and then knowing
Yes.
what's going to happen, and then wanting to make a news story out of it.
Absolutely. And these news stories the headlines are packed full of falsifications. And these people consuming the news aren't doing their own research. Sometimes they're not even reading the article. They're just drawing conclusions based on these headlines. And then that game of telephone, how it changes from one person to the next. The kind of hate mail that we receive is, "You deserve to rot in hell for running a bus full of Black people off the road." Like, it has progressed so far from what actually happened that day. But it's because of these headlines and how they agitate their consumers intentionally, that we're suffering the consequence of that. And so this is a bus that had maybe 3 or 4 white politicians and liberal influencers on it. But what people are walking away with is that we ran this bus full of Black people into a ditch, which is completely insane. Like, I would not be here on your show if that happened.
Right. And I'm pretty sure that would have been made like the headline of the year if a bus was run off the road by a bunch of Trump supporters.
Well, honestly, and the bus drove hundreds of miles through Texas that day. It never pulled off, it never pulled over. It just drove all the way from, I think, the Valley, which is South Texas, to Austin, and parked itself. So, I mean, it never got, this 50,000-pound bus did not get run off the road by a 2,500-pound vehicle. I mean, that's a suicide mission, and nobody cares about politics that much. I mean, like, people don't think these things through themselves. And there was a white staffer car that was driving behind the bus, and the bus and the white Biden staffer car were weaving in and out of traffic pretty sporadically and irresponsibly. They weren't using turn signals. I have a photo that I took on my phone where between the two of them, they were taking up 3, almost 4 lanes on the highway. That's going like all the way across the highway. And they're weaving in and out of traffic unsafely. And the white car was following the bus, and the bus, merged back into a lane, and the white car went to follow it, and it completely sideswiped a Black truck with a Trump flag on it. And that truck kind of like held its position, like defensive driving, kind of like maybe pushed into the white car and bounced the white car back into its lane. And then they both kept driving down the road. Well, mainstream media took a full video showing all that had happened and clipped it down to just the Black truck pushing the white car back. And then the narrative was born that we were ramming cars off the road. But it's the Biden staffer that hit the vehicle with the Trump flag, which wasn't even us. Right. And now the narrative is that we ran the bus off the road. This is how those things go. There's no accountability for the left. The right takes the fall. And there's no conservative media coverage covering our side of the story. Our elected officials have not made statements about this. They've not reached out to help and support us. They've made false statements about it. Like Governor Abbott said that this lawsuit has been dismissed. In fact, we filed for dismissal because they haven't even met the requirements of this law. But the judge we're assigned to, who's appointed to the federal court by Obama, has ruled that we'll go to trial anyway. So it's the opposite of dismissed. And so it's frustrating to me that the left has no shortage of media at their fingertips, media coverage. And then we have next to none. And then for me to hear this week, Tulsi Gabbard talking about what we're seeing with the attack on Trump and how that could affect every American. Why is it that a Democrat is talking out about this before all of the Republicans that I've been reaching out to for the past year and a half are?
Yeah.
That is infuriating to me. And so it feels like we're out here fighting this fight on our own. And when I say that, we are not. It feels like we're marooned sometimes, but we the people have linked arms with us and helped us $5, $10, $20 at a time. And by the grace of God, during all-time inflation highs and this recession that we're living in, we've raised $181,000 to be able to fight back. That's incredible with no media coverage. It's an absolute blessing. And so we will continue to fight to try to expose what the left is doing, but it's very difficult when we don't have media coverage. So you covering our story and giving us a voice is such a huge deal. And I'm so thankful for you. And you are so young and on fire, and you really bring people like hot topics and hot talking points. And I'm so grateful that we would get to be part of that highlight for your viewers.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm glad you brought that point up, because that's something that I think I kind of like grazed over media wise in the past, is not really comprehending the lack of coverage that conservatives get.
Yes.
Because, you know, I mean, they've got media outlets out the wazoo for all the leftist content that you could ever imagine. And, you know, we've got Newsmax and we've got the bigger, conservative based organizations that are trying to be that. Even I'm pretty sure even Fox right now has kind of gone a little bit down.
A Fox reporter at CPAC told me he refused to cover our story.
That's unbelievable. Oh my gosh. And it's just like you're right. It does feel like right now we are very alone, but like, you know, linking arms together, because that is the most important thing that I think we can do right now. And, you know, I do my show, and I know that many others do their shows, and I want them to be as big as possible, because at this point, people are getting their information from independent news sources, and they cannot rely on the mainstream media at all for anything.
Girl, preach it. Like, what I have learned who I want to get my news from, just from who's willing to cover our story, because I know they're not afraid to share the truth. And then I've definitely learned who not to listen to, because they refuse to tell our story. And they'll say things like, that's just not the kind of news we're looking for. That's not the kind of story our viewers want to hear. What on earth? Like, your viewers, the American people, deserve to know about these tyrannical attacks that definitely could and will impact them. And that's how we stick together and how we fight back. And so they're dismantling our strength and contributing to the problem. And for such a long time, I was one of the, you know, like very weak conservatives that was like, well, I'm pro-life, so I'll vote conservative. And other than that, I didn't really know where my values lined up with policies, and I didn't fight for anything. This was before 2020. And so now I'm like, well, you know, at that time it was like, well, Trump's going to fix all of our problems. It's one person that's going to fix all of our problems. And now it's like, absolutely not. I've thought to myself or told myself, if I could just meet so-and-so, if I could meet so-and-so and tell them what's happening, all of our problems will go away. They'll fix it. They'll connect me to somebody. And I've met these people, and it's not happening. And so my focus has shifted from one person can fix it to we are going to fix it. We're going to start these small little bushfires in our communities and in our families and in our neighborhoods, and they're going to catch and they're going to spread. And that's the impact that we're going to make across America to actually save it. We can't just wait for one person to do it. It really matters locally. And it matters with us individually. Like, it's not somebody else's job, it's our job. We've enjoyed the freedoms that were fought for, and then there was a lax generation that didn't defend them. And so now here we are. It's our job to stand up and do something about it. And whether you're a homeschool mom or a college student or whatever, I mean, you have a role in your community to inspire, ignite, and to make people think. And so I've realized that the only person I can count on is God. And every morning I can wake up and go straight to his throne, and I can tell him exactly what's wrong, exactly what I need, and he's provided every step of the way. And beyond that, it's up to me to put one foot in front of the other and figure out what I can do within my arm's reach and what tools I have in my hand.
Absolutely, yeah. And, you know, the conservative movement as a whole has done a really good job at just banning together and really just trying to support each other, especially when we don't have, you know, the support that we thought we could get, because, you know, we can't rely on the government for anything at this point, which is sad because they're supposed to be here for the people. And unfortunately, they've chosen to take the side against the people, and the people are getting angry. The people are sick and tired of it, and they're going to fight back. And I think that they don't realize the type of impact they're going to have on our generation and the
Yeah.
generations following us. Because like you just said, we went through a phase where there was this one generation that was just, you know, we don't have to worry about the problems. It's not our problem. So you know
Yes.
what, we'll leave it to everybody else. But now as we get older, we're sitting here and we're like, absolutely not. We've seen the damages that they've done, and we're not going to let the country continue to go in this direction, because it quite literally could end the country.
Yes. Yes. What a time to be alive. I think that it's so amazing that we get to be a part of defending history, making history. I think it's a beautiful thing. It was scary to me at first, and ultimately it's invigorating. I hope that nobody's discouraged by hearing our story, but that they're inspired, that if hard times, come, which they will, that you persevere, and that great blessings come from that, and you accomplish great things. And I think that we're gonna see the tide turn. There's no way. I mean, watching this uprising of conservative voices like you, like me, like all the people we met at CPAC.
Yeah.
There's no way. there's no media coverage, but we're there. There's more of us. We're louder. We care more. We're smarter. We've got jobs. I mean,
literally.
like we're so much more equipped. We've got brains. We're critically thinking. We're teaching our kids. Record rate of homeschooling kids. That's another generation to follow. Your generation. I mean, I believe that the tide is turning. It just takes so much work.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're the ones willing to put in the work. I was talking to somebody not too long ago, and we were talking about how, the left takes the things that they've gone through and they make themselves victims out of it. But the right takes the things that they've gone through and they make themselves fighters out of it. And I think that's the biggest differentiation between the right and the left, is that we will go through it, but we will take what we learned from things like that and be able to make something 10 times better out of it.
That is profound. I'm obsessed with that.
Right?
That's absolutely it. And for each person that happens to, we're just that much more effective. And for each leftist that's becoming victimized, they're that much more ineffective. They're just loud and obnoxious.
Yes.
We're so much more effective. And speaking of, I mean, this lawsuit that we're in is because of easily offended people, right? So there are no crimes that have been committed. This is civil. So they're just saying their feelings are hurt and want to be compensated. They're weaving this tale and telling this tale and creating all these falsifications through the law system, which is perjury.
Right.
And trying to bankrupt our family for having a difference in opinion and exercising free speech based on being offended. But they have nothing else to stand on. There's holes in their story. It's a house of cards. It's all going to fall down. I have no doubt about that. I have all the confidence in the world that we have truth on our side, that justice will ultimately prevail, even if at this stage with the Obama appointed judge it may not be. I believe that ultimately it will prevail, but it's going to cost us everything to prove our innocence, and they know that. And so they've got 20 attorneys. They have the largest law firm in the world. They have multiple nonprofits funding their lawsuit. They've no doubt already incurred millions of dollars in legal fees, which their goal is to prove that we're in the wrong and that we would owe them financial compensation plus all of their legal fees, which they know we've already spent our last dollar just to defend ourselves up to this point. We cashed out our 401k. We've liquidated our assets, and that's when we started fundraising, because we knew that in order to fight back, we needed money to do it, and we were not just going to roll over. And so I'm so glad, because we're about $80,000 in. Yeah. And we are expecting to need between $200,000 and $600,000 to ultimately prove that we were just exercising free speech, and we didn't traumatizing.
Oh my gosh.
It's completely crazy. So it's so important for us to hold the left accountable for this mentality of being victim and causing consequence to people that did nothing wrong. It's very, very important. Most people don't have the resources to fight back. Just like us, we don't have the resources to fight back. But we have the wherewithal to stand strong, to fundraise. Like you said, we're willing to be on the front lines, and I know not everybody is. And so it's very important that we gain the support of the American people while we're willing to be on the front lines, so that it doesn't come for those people next that may not be able to spend 50 hours a week fundraising or telling their story, or, not everybody has the means to do that.
Absolutely.
So it's just crazy how the left has stuck together on this matter. to substantiate this story. And then
Mhm.
the right has completely fallen apart. Like every attorney we reached out to for help was like, you can't afford us. We can't take you on a fundraising contingency. That's just too much liability. We don't want to be associated with the KKK thing. And so we have one attorney that we finally were able to find one attorney who took us on a fundraising contingency. But even at that, I mean, every couple of weeks, it's $10,000 because we're at this federal level, which is extremely expensive. And so the left is just sitting back drinking Mai Tais on the beach, watching us like get beat around like little pinatas while we shake money out.
Right.
So we hope that we can hold them accountable, get our legal fees reimbursed once we prove that they're lying and that we're innocent. And we hope to start a fund where we can help other Americans defend their right to free speech, because all of the agencies that we've reached out to for financial support, like Alliance Defending Freedom, or, there's a list of 50, we went down in alphabetical order. Every single one rejected us because they specialize in religious freedoms. And none of them specialized in political free speech, which is under the First Amendment right, but that's not what they specialize in. And so we recognize there's a huge need for this, especially in the times that we're living in.
Yes.
And so we hope that maybe God called us to this, to suffer this for a little while, but to ultimately gain a great purpose in this where we can help equip other Americans to defend themselves against tyrannical administrations or any kind of persecution when exercising free speech.
Right, absolutely. And I definitely see that is definitely y'all's calling. Like I know that sometimes, God gives us little things that we have to go through, but the return on it is always 10 times greater.
Yes.
And I mean, just sitting here listening to this, it boils my insides at how the left thinks that they can just get away. I mean, it's the censorship thing.
Yeah.
It's like any way that they can find to shut down any opinion that they don't agree with is so frustrating to me. And it's so easy to feel defeated. It's so easy to feel unmotivated about it. But that's why we continue to speak out. And I literally want your story to be heard by every single person on the entire planet because they need to realize that this just isn't okay. I mean, that's the dumbest, like the way I can dumb it down the most is that it's just not okay. Like people were driving cars and they got mad about it. If that's not the best representation of how they take things based on how they feel and flip it and turn it and manipulate it into something that they can turn into a lawsuit for crying out loud.
Yeah.
It blows my mind.
Yes, girl. And if it's, I can't stress it enough. I'm a stay-at-home mom. Mm-hmm. I am a nobody. If it can happen to me, right, it can happen to anybody. If it's happening to a stay-at-home mom and it's happening to a presidential candidate and former president, everybody in between is subject to it, right? It is such an important matter. And the fact that it's getting next to zero news coverage boils my blood too. I'm like, why does nobody, like I'm seeing all these posts about how, well, if you're so worried about what happened to Trump, like this is coming for Americans next. I'm like, bro, I have been dealing with this for a year and a half. Like you're not responding to my emails. It's so frustrating. Oh,
dang.
So frustrating.
Yeah.
I know. So, I mean, I'm a squeaky wheel. Like I will keep tagging, I will keep emailing, I will keep adding, I will keep, DMing, I will keep charging people up in public when I see them. Which now I've started actually seeing people again, right? So because this happened a year and a half ago, there was a season where I was encountering people for the first time.
Right.
Like, oh my gosh, this is happening to my family. Can you please share our story on your platform? You say you care so much about this, and that. This is completely relevant. And then them say like, no, or yeah, we'll get back with you. And then they never do, right? So now I'm re-encountering these people like, hi, remember me? You never told our story. Like, why is that? And then watching them crawfish all around it, I'm starting to capture this on film.
Good.
Because I do believe that the American people deserve to know who is and isn't reporting on what's going on. And I'm not here to tarnish anybody's reputation, but I am here for the truth and accountability. And so I do plan on finding a graceful and as polite as possible way of exposing what's really going on that we're uncovering as we go through this process. Because I think people trust these people for truth and for knowing what's going on, and they're really, really shady or not the same in person that they feign to be online or on the shows that they're on or the platforms that they have. And so it's really disappointing to experience some of that. But on the contrary, we're finding people like you that are the complete replacement for that kind of stuff. And I just hope you blow up.
Thank you. I want the truth to be exposed, and I don't care what I have to do in order to get it out there. And I think that with all the footage that you're gathering and stuff, we could make a whole documentary about it.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I mean, literally exposing these media outlets that just quite literally aren't doing their job no matter what. They have one job, it's to report the news, it's to report the truth.
Yeah.
And like I said earlier, we're not seeing that because they've already picked a side. And it's absolutely a disgrace to know that even some right-leaning medias just won't pick up the story. Like, where do they get the right to sit here and be like, okay, well, we're going to report on this and that, but like an actual thing that's threatening our First Amendment isn't being talked about, isn't worldwide news? Because I mean, if the lawsuit like goes through, and that's just going to prove to the administration that they can do this on anybody. Like you said, anybody is a target right now. Anybody would be able to get targeted.
Something I didn't know that I've learned in this process is legal precedent. And so it's basically where you point to other lawsuits or cases that, have occurred in the manner that you want them to occur for you. So right now we're going and looking at other cases where people have been sued under the Ku Klux Klan law that did not go through, because we're like, hey, this is not appropriate. You cannot sue us under this because X, Y, and Z. Or we're looking at cases where the Ku Klux Klan law was used and it was for something way more heinous, right? Like than exercising free speech. And they're wanting to sue us, make this the precedent so that they can turn to this lawsuit and say, well, yeah, this should hold up in court because of this case, because we sued them for exercising free speech that offended us, so we should be able to do it to this person. And then it has legal standing. And that's where it's very, very concerning that this can't progress through the legal system. And one example of some of the damages they're seeking is the bus driver is claiming that he's too traumatized to ever drive a bus again. And dead serious. So you have the responsibility of transporting all these people in a massive shuttle bus, but you're so traumatized from cars driving next to you with Trump flags that you can't ever drive again. I'm not sure that you should have been driving in the first place, but he's claiming that he makes between $600,000 and $700,000 annually and wants his salary to be compensated because he cannot ever work again.
If he's making that much money, he does not need extra compensation for his mental disability. Like, that is so ew. Oh, I hate that. Oh my gosh.
Preach it. I'm telling you, it's all so ridiculous. Yet for the last 12 months, we've been asking them to provide his pay stubs, and they refuse to do that. They refuse to provide the pay stubs, and this is part of supplemental documentation that should have been provided with the initial claim. You're claiming that he's too traumatized to work, supplement that with pay stubs, counseling visits, like whatever, like supplement this claim, right? But they haven't. And we've asked for it for 12 months and they refuse to provide it. And the last response was, well, we're not going to provide it until the judge rules on a protective order that we have filed, which is basically saying they don't want us to discuss the details that they turn over to us. And it's essentially a gag order. So if they label something confidential that they have to turn over, we can't talk about it with the public, which is shocking and inappropriate and unconstitutional.
Right.
And the judge ruled in favor of it. And they referenced that I was doing interviews and said that they didn't want the extreme conservative community to backlash these high-profile political figures, and that because I was
talking with the job.
That
comes with the job. If they're going to be in politics, they're going to have to take the heat. If they can't take the heat, get out of politics.
I'm telling you. And thanks for the national press release. How I had to find out about the lawsuit, but got it. You're not cool with it. Yeah. But he ruled in favor of it. And so then the plaintiffs said, well, we're not turning over the pay stubs until the judge rules on the protective order, because obviously they don't want us to talk about it. Well, why would that be? Would that be because it's false information, because they're fabricating the information? And so this is how the whole thing is going. It's a complete joke. They have nothing to substantiate any of their claims. They're dragging things out. They're not producing the information they're supposed to produce. They're trying to silence us from talking about what they do turn over because they know that it'll expose the corruption. But I fully believe that the truth will come out. Everything that happens in darkness comes to light. I'm not scared about it. I'm just going to continue talking about what I can talk about. And I believe that the truth will come out.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's important to everybody watching right now. Like, this is why I push so heavily on never standing down, always fighting back, and always say what you believe in, because the more people that come out and start talking about the things that aren't being talked about, and the more people that just straight up raise hell about it, essentially,
Yeah.
the more attention it's going to get. And your story is something that needs to be heard by everybody. And I've linked your website right here. I don't know if it shows up on
Thank
your
you.
screen, but I want everybody to go to that website. And I also want everybody just to remember, like, the fight, there's not a better time than now to have this fight and to fight for what we believe in and what we stand for, because it's being targeted. It's being targeted from the president to you. And like you said, anybody else, it could happen to anybody else at any second. And some people may be prepared for it. Some people may not be prepared for it, but it's getting bad. And the First Amendment, all of the amendments are under attack. The First Amendment, Second Amendment, it's just insane, the things that they think they can get away with at this point.
That's right. And we're going to show them what they can and can't get away with. It's
Absolutely.
up to us, right? Like, you let people treat you a certain way. You teach people how they can treat you. And so it's time for us to demand respect from the people that work for us, and that they would follow the rules and the Constitution, and that our our foundation, remains intact. That's on us. And so I appreciate you linking the website. It's freespeechdefender.com.
Mm-hmm.
That's right now what we're using to update y'all on our story as it progresses through the law system, and to raise funds to equip ourselves to fight the fight. There's ways to contact us, to see interviews that we've been on. And we also have a merchandise tab, a shop tab, which is really fun. We live in a Germantown, which has Worst Fest, which is like Oktoberfest. And so it's like this 10-day sausage fest where you drink beer and eat sausage. And so we have this shirt that says Biden is the worst, and it has a giant wiener on it, and it's hysterical. We've seen some conservative influencers and rappers wearing them, and we're so excited about it. So people can get Biden is the worst merch on our website at freespeechdefender.com. That's another way to help the fundraiser. And just sharing the information with friends and family is so critical for us to get this information out there. That's what we're relying on so heavily right now. So freespeechdefender.com is how you can keep up with our story as we progress through the legal system. We post updates every time something changes there.
Wow. I'm gonna get one of those shirts because that sounds really funny. I have like a whole section in my closet designated to all of my political stuff, and it's like, oh, who do I want to make mad today? Like, I'll wear them all. I'll wear all the political shirts to the gym, out in public, and I always get those looks, and it's just so funny to see who's on whose side.
That's my favorite, especially with this one, because it's blue and it says Biden, right? So the conservatives will always look and then read it and then just die laughing and be like, I love your shirt. And then the liberals will look at it and then read the rest, and then their face just
Yeah, the longer you can get them to stare. I have that Biden shirt that has the bloody handprint, and I remember wearing it, and then I forgot who it was, but they were like, and then they were like, oh, and I'm like, yeah.
Yes, keep going.
Yeah. But yeah. Wow. No, but your story needs to be shared. Everybody watching this right now, I want you to go literally tweet their website, talk about their story, send it to all your friends and family. This is something that cannot slide, will not be okay. Do you know have they set the actual trial date yet?
No, that's something that's completely ridiculous. This is so dragged out, which is what's costing so much money. This is part of that lawfare where they weaponize the law system against you. They make it cost so much money by dragging things out. We've been in court. Well, I say that. We've never even been in person for over a year. We have no trial date. I don't even know when we're going to get one, when we're going to get to go in person. But it's going to be a trial by jury of our peers in the Western District, which is Austin, Texas, which is already stacked against us. So we're trying to appeal this to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, which is much more conservative than this federal level. And then after that, it's the Supreme Court of the United States. So let's see where this goes.
Yeah. It's definitely going to be interesting. I think they need to not drag it out, because I think they're only dragging it out because they can't gather anything on their side. They have nothing.
Facts.
They're just mad because people drive around with Trump flags and Trump stickers.
Yes.
And they get their feelings hurt. And we're going to call them out for getting their feelings hurt.
Yep. And I think that they're probably going to try to, if I had to guess, ramp this back up in the media through midterms.
Yeah.
Just the same way they did in the 2020 election. And during Trump's impeachment trial, they brought this matter up along with January 6th as well. So I think they're really trying to criminalize it, even though there's nothing criminal about it. The people who consume the information believe it. And at the impeachment trial, I can't even remember which politician it was like, Trump supporters formed their vehicles in like a formation to run the bus off the road. Like, y'all have taken this story so freaking far.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious to see what happens during midterms. I'm curious to see if this ramps back up or if it completely falls off, if the red wave comes. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on here and sharing your story. This will not be the last time that we talk about it. In fact, I'm going to have to make it like a weekly segment on the show where I just remind everybody, hey, remember this is happening. Pay attention to it. Tell your friends and family everything's going on. But I do want to thank you so much for coming onto the show.
Thank you so much for having me. You were awesome. I appreciate that you really get how important it is and that you won't let people forget about it. That means everything to our family.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because this is only the beginning.
Sadly, it's true. Thank you, Kaylee.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. I cannot stress how absolutely infuriating it is that the Biden administration, that the media outlets, that quite literally every single person on the left and on the right, for that matter, literally have to sit here and nitpick the tiniest little things to get upset about and find reasons to cry and complain about. I have no words. I have no words because of how irritating this is. And this stuff happens. Like you see, nobody's talking about it, and it's not gonna slide if I have anything to do about it. I don't care. I will come after the Biden administration, and I will do my best until I am either shot down or arrested. Like, I will not stop. And that's exactly why I have this show, to bring up situations like this that you won't see CNN or Newsmax or Fox. And guess what? I'm going to call them all out. I'm going to call every single media outlet out right now because of the fact that they don't want to sit here and do their job. We sat here yesterday and we talked about how the FBI wasn't doing their job. Well, guess what? The news outlets aren't doing their job either. And it's disappointing. It's disappointing to sit here and have my own outlet and have to talk about things like this that the freaking media outlets won't talk about because they're too afraid either of hurting somebody's feelings or it doesn't fit with their agenda. Right now, you have a family who is supporting the president and expressing their First Amendment, okay? We put together a support. Like, you see these all the time. You see the Trump trains all the time. I mean, it's hilarious to do it every single time Biden's anywhere in any city. And for whatever reason, they decide to take this and they run with it. And the media outlets are not going to stop running with it until it fits their agenda perfectly. And if it can happen to them, it can happen to you too. And that is not okay. It is not okay, no matter what. Free speech is something that is the most important right that you have as a citizen of the United States. And if that is ever in jeopardy, you have to do whatever you can in your power to preserve and protect that right. And as we know, because we've talked about things like this in the past, it has been under attack for God knows how long. And God forbid the Biden administration themselves sees this video. I swear to God, if you continue to threaten the First Amendment for every single citizen in the United States, you will get what's coming to you, and you will not get away with the constant abuse of every single citizen in the United States. It's not okay. You're not going to get away with it, and we will literally build an army of people to bring you down. It is upsetting. It's a shame that our government has gotten to this point, and it's a shame that the media outlets have gotten to this point. And shame on the Republican side, honestly, because you're not innocent in this either. Shame on the Republicans for not standing their ground. I'm sick and tired of the rhinos. There are way too many of them. There are way too many politicians who sit in their happy little chair and vote on this and that, but they don't actually want to go home and continue to support the movement that they claim to be a part of so proudly. And they don't want to sit here and fight for people in the United States for their rights, for their freedoms, things like this. All of that are in jeopardy for your everyday average person, like any of us. All of our rights are in jeopardy. But even some of the Republican politicians just want to sit there and go back home to their little mansions. They want to go home and they don't have anything else to worry about, and they just don't seem to care about the everyday average person. And it's sad. And I don't want the the right to continue to divide like this, but if we don't call them out on their BS for acting like this and not holding them accountable, then it's just going to continue to get worse. It's a war between the right and the left and the right. Like it's sad. If I can let you in on anything else, please, for the love of God, stand up for what you believe in. You have to raise absolute hell. You cannot back down now. You cannot sit here and think that somebody else is going to fight for you. You can't sit here and think that, I'll worry about it tomorrow, because guess what? Tomorrow it may get worse. We don't know how far. I mean, this whole story is a perfect example of like seeing how far the Biden administration is willing to go to censor people for their free speech. So please, everybody watching this, say how you feel, fight for what you believe in, because tomorrow it could literally all be taken away from you, just like that. I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for watching. Please go visit their website and donate to them if you can. Watch their video, share the story, go on Facebook, go on Twitter, go on Instagram, go on Getter, Truth, all of the social media outlets. Share it to everybody. Text it to your parents right now. Text it to your parents. Text it to your friends. Get it out there, because I promise you, this is only the beginning. Like I said, this is only the beginning, and it's only going to get worse from here, and we can't stop fighting. Okay, I love you guys so much. I'll see you on the stream tomorrow. Make sure to join the Discord. Make sure to follow the Instagrams. And don't forget to subscribe.